Mr. Prasun Basu, the President, South Asia at Nielsen, who joins us on his analysis of the impact of demonetization on the FMCG space. Hi, Mr. Basu. Thanks so much, sir, for joining in today. I was just running through your note, and you've broken that up for us. The modern trade contributes around 8%, and you're saying that, in fact, traditional trade is at around 92%. If you could give us a further subdivision of that 92% as per your analysis, how much is cash and how much was debit cards and plastic money?
Well, that's where I guess the story is. Almost all of it is cash. I think from our estimate, less than 1% is debit cards and electronic payments and any other commerce routes and coupons. So almost all of that 92% is cash. Yes.
So you would say 90% of FMCG sales would be cash denominated, sir?
That's correct. Broadly, yes.
Okay. So what has been the feedback that you've got on the impact of demonetization on FMCG companies in the last 2 weeks?
So I mean, we are an information company, and hence we've got, access to both retailers and consumers, and we've been talking to them a lot. So what we did as the whole thing rolled out, we went out to all our retailers using our technology and our inputs into them and spoke to some 3,000 retailers. And what we find is, and let's talk about the 92% first, right? Because that's the big animal. So we find more than 60% of retailers are telling us that sales are down in a big way. It could be down by 30%, 40%, 50, 60%, but it's somewhere in the range of 30 to 60%. And this is, like I said, more than 60% of retailers clearly call this out. The hit is really severe on the impulse categories: biscuits, salty snacks, a lot of the large what we call HPC categories, home and personal care categories. There's huge hit. On the other hand, if you look at the staples, if you look at oil, tea, atta, etc., there's almost no damage happening there. So again, a lot of these things you'll find there's a lot of polarity. Some are severely hit, and there are some of the staples and essentials where the hit is close to zero. So that's the big story, I think, on the traditional trade, which is the 92% that we spoke about, and mostly cash. If I just look at the channels, one of the interesting things that comes up is cash and carry. And again, Nielsen measures the entire traditional trade through our retail audit, but we also have a cash and carry scan track index, which covers all of the cash and carry in the Indian space. And there we find also there's a drop happening because retailers are buying less from them. So clearly there's a difficult story happening with cash and carry, and we work with 100% of them. Right. Big story is again on non-food, where there's a severe drop happening in terms of retailers buying from them. Yeah. On the food side, staple side, the drop is not as much, but it's still happening, but severe drop there. The reverse effects are happening on modern trade and on the digital side, as you can expect. So again, the story is mixed. And you just talked about the 7% growth earlier. So if you look at this contrast, there's a big boomerang effect that's happening on modern trade. Overall, all trade, our growth 2 year on FMCG is 7%. Compare that to modern trade. Modern trade was actually only around 4.5%. So modern trade this year was lagging all growth. Correct. Right? 7 versus 4. Modern trade right now, from the week or 10 days that we have had, is up 20% from a year ago, same time. So we've gone from 4% to 20%. The year till now was 4% growth. Now we are seeing 20%, which is a 5x growth if you look at it from that standpoint. Sure. And very, very graduated. I mean, obviously it's happening because of the electronic payments they're achieving. There is extended hours they're doing. They're running a lot of promos that we are all aware of. Yeah. But again, there's a very, very big difference in the kind of categories which are selling versus not. Right. So if you look at packaged groceries, it's around 45% up. And that's on the other side. Cooking mediums, packaged groceries, 45% up. Yeah. If you look at impulse, it's up only by around 10%. Right. So you see again a breadth of 45 to a 10, right? Right. Very interesting dynamics by cities as well. If you want, I can give you a quick glimpse of it. But and it's interesting because if you look at cities like Delhi, up 45% on modern trade. Yeah. If you look at the south, only a 5 to 10% up, Chennai, Bangalore, etc. And that's again because modern trade is already matured and large as a channel, so you're not seeing enough delta there in the south. But if you look at the north or the west, Pune, you're seeing a big delta on modern trade there. Like I said, in the range of a 5x kind of a change in growth patterns.
Right. All right, Mr. Basu, you're making a very valid point there. In terms of modern trade, I as well will have to adjust myself, I think, to get all my groceries and the likes. But the other point you made was about biscuits and salty snacks. That's taking the hardest hit. What is the hit over there? More than 60%, 70%, 80%? What is it? And also, if you could give us a sense about what is the market share? Lay's, the various brands. We have Lay's, Britannia, Parle, Sunfeast. What was the market share? So, we, as someone who's tracking the market, they can get some kind of analysis in terms of what can the stock impact be.
Yeah, we are an information company, we obviously look at all of this, and as we receive and analyze, we report back to you immediately and as live as we can, and that's what we are doing today.
Sure.
But, this question is a very important question because the belly of this question lies in the traditional trade, throughput that's going on, right? And I would say just you need to give us a few days to come back to this because as the month closes, we'll have the full data of the month to be able to see what's the impact on the traditional trade. But we clearly are seeing, I think, more than 50% effect coming in, so in the range of 50 to 60% effect for sure I would expect to see on the impulse categories. What's the quantification? Which of those subcategories are getting hit the most? We'll need a few days, but like I said, we've spoken to 3,000 retailers and we are getting a difficult picture from them. And also, that wholesale is very big in a lot of these, right? So direct versus wholesale makes a big difference. And many of the companies who have high exposure to wholesale will get a bigger, impact of this because that's completely drying up versus where there's direct distribution, which is still, there's a bit of a play that the manufacturers, advertisers have on where they've got, high proportion of direct distribution. The other big play is digital, and we can talk about that whenever you would like.
Okay. So you spoke to 3,000 retailers, right? And they've indicated that, 60% of them have indicated that sales are down in a big way. What is the sense they've given you on when they expect a recovery in sales? Should we expect, November, December to be washout months for the FMCG companies? Should recovery come back in January? What is the feedback on the ground with respect to a recovery?
Yeah, I guess there is, all of us will have our hypothesis, and the shop owners, the retail store guys will have theirs, the manufacturers will have theirs. We've been talking to a lot of our manufacturer, clients and colleagues as well. And I don't think we expect a very quick recovery. I would certainly not say in the 2016 calendar year. Some of it will perhaps spill over to 2017, the last quarter of the financial year, Jan, March, but certainly not in the next few weeks.
Is there a risk of it spilling beyond the Jan to March quarter, sir, of 2017?
Well, from an operational context, I would argue against it. The only thing, and this is a difficult one to really kind of get our heads around, but is there going to be a permanent shift in behavior of consumers as a result of this is the question. Will there be a pattern of consumption or demand shift that's going to happen? If that happens, then you will see that impact beyond the last quarter of the financial year, right? Because that's a more permanent in nature. It's a base effect change. Is there going to be more modern trade versus traditional trade? Is there going to be a cut down on impulse or certain kinds of impulse? Right. So if the consumer readjusts their demand pattern, then I think you will see a bigger impact. But I hope not. I hope that the inherent demand patterns will stay on and it will come back to really help us, once we've passed over this. Obviously, there's a big digital, shift that's going to happen, and it's already happening. And a lot of the kiranas and even rickshaw drivers and stuff like that are really trying to get to electronic mode. So there's some interesting data on that. There's a lot of interesting data because we do a mobile panel where we pick up actually digital behavior of consumers.
Right.
So I can quickly summarize that for you if you would like.
All right, Mr. Basu, we are running out of time, but we'll appreciate if you join us, in the coming weeks and give us the latest.